All right, welcome to season 6, episode 2. This is Carnival in Port of Spain, Roots, Rhythm, and the Rise of Soca. Laura, this episode and the following episode has been a long time in the planning. And actually, I have to say, I'm a little bit nervous to do this episode because so much went into us actually arriving to Trinidad and Tobago for Carnival that this is a good debrief because I actually haven't really seen you since we left.
This is the first time we see each other since our trip.
Okay, so before we get to all of that, I'm Nalini Sharma and
I am Laura Senior Garcia, and we are super happy to be co hosting the Made in Spain podcast back for our listeners.
yeah, and if everybody wants to just follow us, where can they find us, Laura?
So I would say in any of the podcast platforms, it is tremendously helpful if you follow the podcast because that is the only way you'll get notified when a new episode comes out. It really does help us to grow this project. We just hit a huge milestone of 250,000 downloads for the podcast today, which is very significant for a self-produced podcast like ours.
Yeah.
And we can't do that without our listeners. So if you want to follow, and then obviously on socials at the Made in Spain podcast or on TikTok, it's a slightly different tone than the actual podcast. But I think, for people that want to get to know us a little bit better outside of the podcast construct, they'll love it. So please follow along.
All right. Now, Carnival isn't just a party, it's rhythm, resistance, and release. And in Port of Spain, it becomes something larger than a festival. It really becomes your identity. And even if you're not from there, when you're there, you're a Trini. Everybody is.
I found myself almost wanting to learn how to do a Trini accent when I left. So, first of all, I just want to say thank you to all the people from Trinidad who received us there, part of your family, the people who we played with in terms of the band, everyone. It just made it so special. So, really, really excited, but also really excited for Nalini to share her connection to Port of Spain and to Trinidad.
Right. So now my family, that is where my parents are from. I have a sister who's there. My brother was actually born there. I was born in Canada, but he was born there, which I like to tease him about, but that's okay. And it's one of those things where I grew up in Toronto, and Toronto has a huge Caribbean population. I mean, from just every part of the Caribbean, you can find it in my city,
Yeah.
my hometown. And that's also because there was a wave of immigration in the 60s and 70s where Trinidad was part of the Commonwealth, and it was easy for people from the Caribbean to immigrate to Canada. The doors were open at that time. And just like there were, a lot of Italians that came over, a lot of Europeans. So I grew up with the culture, even though I'm a Canadian girl. I'm from Toronto, but we had a very sort of, I would say, traditional, West Indian kind of house. I grew up eating the food, observing, parts of the culture. My mom had a very, Trini accent. Our family, extended family, and my mom would always say she would refer to it as back home.
Oh,
And even though she spent far longer in her life living in Canada than she did in Trinidad, she always referred to it as back home, which to me is really, I don't know, it was very interesting. And I think a lot of people who move from Trinidad in particular, they could be in their 60s and 70s, 80s now, and they still refer to it
as home.
as home. It has that pull. So I did a little bit of research, but the capital of Trinidad and Tobago is Port of Spain. And like most places in the Caribbean, you have colonialism. You
Mm-hmm.
had, the Spanish, you had the French, you had the British.
British.
So when Spain they were the original, sort of, what word do we want to use?
Colonizers.
Colonizers.
I mean, not passing judgment here. It's history.
It's just history. So, I mean, that was, they founded, the port of Spain in the mid 1500s. And they just called, that was the name that they gave it.
But it's kind of crazy if you think about it, because Port of Spain. So again, we're the Made in Spain podcast, and we're like, okay, what's the connection with Trinidad? Obviously, we've got Nalini, who's integral co-host of this podcast, who has roots in Trinidad. And but then when we start looking at it as well, it's like Port of Spain is the only city in the world
Yes.
that has the word Spain in it.
It's the only city actually in the world. And I mean, the Spanish called it by its Spanish, translation. But then when the British took over in the 1700s, they just translated into English, and it became Port of Spain.
But it's interesting that the British didn't change it.
No.
I do find that interesting, because, when Puerto de España,
Yeah.
Port of Spain, it's like, okay, they kept the name.
They just kept it. So, and it serves, if anybody who has been to, okay, you can picture the Caribbean, the white sandy beaches, and that people just think it's, you're in a hammock all day and it's palm trees and relax. Trinidad, I would say, is vastly opposite to that. It's almost, Trinis refer to it as the New York of the Caribbean, and it really is. It is a little bustling city where you have traffic. It is busy. There's industry. There is natural resources. You have banking. And it's a city.
However, Tobago's different.
Tobago's very different. That is the island kind of vibe, the slower pace of life, the beautiful beaches. And it's not to say that Trinidad doesn't have beautiful beaches. They do. It's just a very different vibe. So if you were to just, go and you're thinking you're going to end up in this kind of tropical paradise,
like Aruba or Barbados.
It's different than that. It is a working, busy capital city in the Caribbean.
Isn't there, because we saw a lot of movement in the port as well, isn't there like some energy sector representation as well?
I think they have that. They also have the Pitch Lake,
Yeah.
which is, one of the natural wonders. And they have a lot of natural resources.
Yes.
So they've never had to rely on tourism per se, whereas other Caribbean islands, that's their bread and butter.
Exactly. That's the only
I
thing
mean,
they
in
have.
fact, there are no all-inclusives in Trinidad.
Yeah.
That's not a thing there.
That definitely tells you something, though.
Yeah, there's no all-inclusive. You have hotels, and we'll talk about your hotel experience, which is super traumatizing.
Yeah, it's like PTSD from that.
Traumatizing then, but kind of funny now.
Yeah, now we can look back and laugh at it.
But so that is like just the different vibe of it. So, we arrive. You were there prior a long time ago, but you didn't really remember much of it.
Well, I went for a work trip for a
Right.
couple of days, and it was a basically oil rig that was coming from the Gulf of Mexico being brought to Brazil, and the stopping point was Trinidad.
Right.
And we were doing a session there, and I remember because at that point I hadn't spent any time in the Caribbean.
Right.
And again, to your point, I had this mental picture, or the mental picture that a lot of Spanish people have of the Caribbean. And I remember walking out of the airport going, okay, like 15 years ago, this does not look like what I thought it would.
No.
So, but then afterwards, again, for me, I love going to places like Trinidad because, number one, I love places that are a bit unique, a bit different. I love the food. I'm not an all-inclusive kind of person. So
Right.
I love that kind of adventure part of it.
And before I forget, there was actually a very funny connection with the ship. Do you remember
there
that?
was. Yeah. I think they were a naval ship.
Yes.
So it's like naval training.
Right. But it was from Spain.
Yes. I think a lot of the people on there were from Cadiz.
Yes.
Again, shout out Cadiz. Like always
They
in our, always
And
in
it
our
was
path.
like right outside the hotel.
And there was like 300 people
Yeah.
who were training. This was like their training, but it was it looked like a pirate ship almost, because
Yes.
it had the big kind of, what do you call them?
Sails.
The sails. So it's a massive sailboat. And I think they said they were doing 6 months at sea,
Right.
stopping in different places. One of the stops was Trinidad, and they were from Spain.
They were from, it's so super funny. And then you spoke to a couple of the students.
Yes.
And they were so shocked that you were from Spain and that we had been to Cadiz.
They were recently been to Cadiz, and they had such an accent from Cadiz.
But it's funny, when you go, you're in this tiny little island off the coast of Venezuela, and literally there's a Spanish naval vessel right outside
The
where you're
hotel.
where you're eating your dinner. So, they say small world,
It
small
i-
world.
it definitely is. So before we move on from actual Port of Spain, Nalini, do you just want to give? Because I think one thing that's very unique about Port of Spain, at least from an outsider looking in, is the cultural mix that's there of people, and it's just such a melting pot. I mean, really is.
Well,
So
when you look at the names of the cities and towns across the island, they have Spanish, they have Dutch, you have French, obviously English. It is. I always say that I think the Caribbean is one of the world's first sort of melting pots,
yeah,
really, because you had all of Europe uh, settle there, and not just Europe. You also have Indians,
yeah.
you have blacks, you have
And the people who came from
Africans.
India, I think they came like 110
Yeah, like
plus
maybe
years ago.
150 years,
Yeah.
you have that. You have Asians.
Yeah.
So you can have, I mean, West Indian Chinese food is a thing. It's
It's
Chinese
just
food, but
so funny to me.
it's made in that sort of that style of cooking. So, but it's made by Chinese people who are Trinidadian,
But there's also like a Creole influence as
Yes.
well.
So you have, I think, everything there.
Yeah, it's and so tasty. Like the food is so good.
No, it is. Yeah, it is
We could do a
very.
whole episode just on doubles, but
Yeah,
like it's so
it's
good.
very indulgent, I would say, but
Yes.
also very I don't know, like homey.
Yes. However, and now we're probably going to transition soon to the actual time that we were there.
Yeah.
It's very homey, but for I guess a month out of the year, the whole island totally changes.
Yeah. Well, for Carnival.
Correct.
So Carnival, I mean, Trinidad is not the only island that has carnival celebrations, but it is the only island that does it to that extent, that has that many people. You have, I might be wrong about this, but let's just average it at 10 to 12 other Caribbean islands that have their own carnival celebrations throughout the year. It's not always followed through the Christian calendar, but Carnival in Trinidad is. So
It's like Barbados crop overs in August,
is in
right?
August. So they have, maybe there's a different, I haven't done a lot of research into it, but maybe there's a different connotation
Yeah.
to it. But there is no party like the carnival in Trinidad. Even I know Brazil that's completely different. So you can't really, I mean, I think people like to compare the two, but I don't think you can because it's very
It's
different.
very different. I think the key difference, I was at pre-carnival in Brazil.
Mhm.
I think the key difference between Trinidad and Brazil in a very simplistic way is that if you're not from Trinidad and you're not part of the bands before, you can go and take part in this experience. It
Yes.
doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter if you've ever been. There's a lot of really great companies that
It's
help
open
you
to
get,
all.
it's
Yeah.
open to all. That is not the same case in Brazil.
No.
In Brazil, you have to be a part of one of the samba schools. Like
Right.
there's a lot of different things. So a lot of people go to watch carnival in
Yeah.
Brazil, and in Trinidad, you can watch it. It's
Yeah.
also very entertaining, but you can be in it.
Right. And I think the Brazil carnival is more of a, if you had to describe it, more of a show.
Yeah.
So you would sit as a spectator and you watch and it's spectacular. Whereas carnival in Trinidad is an experience. You are part of the experience. You're living it.
I love that. Like the show versus like the actual lived experience.
Yeah, 100%. So now the word carnival, I learned this yesterday, is from the Latin word carne vale,
Which
means
means,
farewell to the flesh.
is that because of the pre-Easter thing?
I think so. So the best way to kind of think about it, Carnival is celebrated here too
Yes.
in any Catholic country for the most part. For the most part, there's this sense of party. You look at Mardi Gras. It follows the same sort of calendar where
Same,
you
same.
have on the Tuesday they call it Pancake Tuesday, right? So in North America, you have, they call it Fat Tuesday, where you indulge, and then the next day is Lent, and then you give something up. So you party, party, party up until Tuesday, and then Wednesday is Ash Wednesday, and you go into Lent. Again, I'm not a Christian, but is it not 40 days? Approximately.
Don't know.
Okay. Well, it's up until Easter, right? So
Yeah.
so it's up until Easter that you give something up until, post Easter.
I do know the consistent theme is the rebellion, the party, the basking in, the more, let's say, sinful stuff.
Yes.
And then when Easter comes, things change dramatically.
Right. So it's based on, Catholicism, really following that type of calendar. So Trinidad is no different. Now, we were talking about it was settled by the Spanish, then you had the British, you also had a French influence. And from the research that I have read, again, I'm saying all of this with great respect. And, if I'm
Mhm.
wrong, please somebody correct me in a nice way. Um,
Be nice.
but it is from French origins.
Mhm.
And they believe that it came from Nice in France, that the wealthy French landowners would have these beautiful masquerade balls, and their workers, their slaves,
We're not. Yeah.
were not obviously allowed to participate in it. And they would watch their owners, I hate using these words, but they would watch from the sidelines, and they started to adopt in secret their own celebrations, and it became it wasn't what it was, I mean, obviously what it is today, but it became a way to sort of mock them. That
Yes.
look at these people, look how ridiculous they are. So it would be whether it was dancing or music or very rudimentary instruments that they would have. They would take the old pieces of clothes from, the slave masters,
Mhm.
basically, and make little costumes out of it. And it became something as a parody or, satire. And it was their way of celebrating as well and having their own sense of expression.
That was, they tried to suppress that.
Yes.
However, some of the words that I have noted here was Canboulay.
Yes. Yeah. So it comes from the French canis brules.
Brûlé.
Yeah, which involved drumming, singing, stick fighting. And it was originally a practice of having the slaves to put out fires in the
Yeah.
cane fields. Um, Now, when slavery was abolished in the 1800s, early 1800s, they wanted to hold on to these traditions.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until the late 1800s that they actually referred to it as the Canboulay riots,
Mhm.
where I think now the British were in control and they wanted to suppress this kind of expression of freedom and creativity. But people prevailed and it continued.
So they tried to stop them from drumming, and
Yes.
that's when steel pan
Yes.
started to happen. And there are so many terms and there are so many layers to this. As Nalini said, we are trying our best to understand all of it as well as be part of the experience while, respecting the fact that this means a lot to a lot of people, particularly in Trinidad. So if we say something that's not quite there, just reach out to us, let us know, because we are on a learning journey for
Yeah.
sure when it comes to this. So really, that's that whole transition at that point when Carnival became about resistance and pride and ownership. So it's something very special to be a part of. As an outsider looking in before going, I was thinking more of obviously the pretty costumes and everything else. But once you're there is a certain energy that you
Mhm.
feel that is probably generational, that's, years and years of tradition that you cannot describe until you are there.
And also from what we experienced, we barely really scratched the surface in
No.
terms of the amount of events. And even, okay, now
You
it,
need a clone to be like, you literally need
y-
multiple clones of yourself to be at some of
in
these
different
events.
places. And then some of the events are very cultural as well.
Yes.
And unless you're there early enough, you cannot, you're not able to experience it. So, I mean, we only had so much time that we could be there. And it is worth noting that maybe if we were to do it again, it would be, I think, of interest to be there earlier
Yeah.
to take part, or at least to observe some of the more historical aspects of it, because maybe in today's world that is a little bit lost.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that I did, just talking to people there and getting their take on it, etc.
Well, you got to visit some family as well,
Yeah,
and it's
but their thing is that carnival was never, it was about costumes, but not the types of costumes that people wear today. It
nope.
was a lot more clothes
Yeah.
involved. And I think maybe it was a little bit more theatrical in a way,
Yes.
is the
There's
best
still
way.
some bands that
There's
have an
some
element of
bands,
that.
yeah. There's some bands that do have that element where it's, actually, and those are the bands that, excuse me, that I would say stick out of all the other bands, even though those are the more traditional bands
Yeah.
that where they have on sort of costumes that
Very colorful.
very colorful. They're more covered. It's telling a different story. It's holding on to some of the roots and the traditions of carnival. And talking to some people there, they've said, listen, it's become a little controversial that, people laugh and say carnival, by, 10 years from now, it'll just be two strings that you have as your costume.
Or who knows, it may go back,
It'll be
to
interesting.
being more covered up. So next episode, we're
Yeah.
gonna be talking more about the actual carnival where
Yeah.
we played in a band, etc. But now we also want to share with you a huge part of carnival, which is about the music.
Yes.
So before getting involved with this experience, I had heard soca music,
Right.
but I didn't really know soca music. I didn't know the meaning. I didn't know, honestly, half of the time I didn't actually understand what they were saying.
Yeah.
I multiple times made myself look really ignorant and sent to Nalini like, are they singing in English? Because it's like, what? Because it's like a very heavy accent, almost like dialect words, etc.
Yeah, some of the words they're not real. I mean, they're English words, but it's slang. It's Trini slang.
It's Trini slang,
Yeah.
which I'm very proud to say that now I can actually understand maybe 10% of it. It's hard.
It's hard.
But it's so interesting because basically if you go to carnival, if you're going to be involved anything for, from a carnival standpoint, all the kind of people who help you to prepare will, and this is something that I'm so grateful that I saw a while back. And you told me this as well. It's like, you have to start listening to soca because that is the only kind of music that will be played at carnival.
It's the only, you do not hear anything else.
Absolutely. So if you go in thinking, if you're, at least for me, if I go to a concert, in order to enjoy that concert, I kind of need to recognize the music.
Right.
I'm not someone that can go to a concert. I've never heard any of these songs. I can't get into it.
No.
So you have to get yourself into soca if you're going to go to carnival.
Yeah.
Unless you want to go nuts.
Yeah.
Because it is like full on. Even I remember, which was really funny, from the immigration line in the airport.
They're playing it in the airport.
You're listening to soca. And for me, I love dancing. I love music. It is a kind of music that you cannot be still when you're listening to soca. We had a funny, what you want to mention about when we went to the mall?
Oh, yeah, where the music is just it's playing, it's loud, and you have, you're standing in the line and everybody's like this. Like everybody in the line is like moving to the, and I'm like, you can't, in nowhere else would this be normal. Where everybody's bopping in the store, like just, getting their stuff and everybody's moving. And I said, this is not normal. Like, can you imagine going to our local mall and the Zara and dancing?
No.
Like, that would
and
never
soca as well, right?
Yeah.
Which again has a lot of very kind of like sexual references, different references.
Yeah.
Actually, some of the stuff when you actually stop and listen to it, you're like, what? But it's the music, once you get into it, it is contagious.
It's contagious.
I have to say that I cannot get some of the songs out of my head.
Me too.
Like it's
running in my head right now.
like what they say, like the kids say now, like it's living rent free in my head.
It is. I go to bed with it's like the soundtrack in my mind, and I cannot get it out.
Question for you. I got a question for you, and I'm like, come on, like please leave my brain right now. Like I can't get it out of my head.
It's there.
Yeah,
It's there.
It's crazy.
And what's interesting about the Carnival season is that leading up to Carnival. I mean, the whole music side of it, you need a PhD to really explain
Yes.
it. So we're doing the best we can. But they start releasing, all the soca artists start releasing songs leading up to Carnival, because there's one song that will, and we'll talk about this in the next episode, but there's
Road
one song
March.
that wins what they refer to as Road March. But what to me is so fascinating is that you have these artists that they're now starting to really break into a more of an international scene, and to be recognized as international artists.
So I have a post podcast recording discussion kind of in the works with Nalini about 3 different soca concerts that I've identified in Europe.
Right. And they're starting to like break through into, let's say, you want to call it the mainstream, kind of the way that reggaeton artists were sort of unknown, but now are, they're the biggest thing. Reggaeton is a huge music category.
Exactly.
And I mean, look at Bad Bunny,
Exactly. Who would have thought that he would have been doing the Super Bowl, 10
singing
years
in
ago?
Puerto Rican slang,
Exactly.
not even proper Spanish. I mean, so I don't know how far soca will go, but what I can appreciate is that how hard they have to work to put out these songs. So
because this year's songs won't be the same.
No, and this is the thing. It's not as if they release an album. Let's say whatever, an artist releases an album, and then this song is kind of popular, and then another song will come out. It's not like that. They finish Carnival season and are probably already working towards next season, where leading up to maybe like around Christmas time, maybe even a little before, they might start to release music for Carnival season. And then you have to have something original every year.
So if you want to listen to some of the soca music that we were listening to at the Carnival, here's some of the artists that you may look out for. But I will say on Spotify, there's a playlist called Soca 2026 Carnival that includes a lot of this. But you have, can you please say his name?
Machel Montano.
Okay, because in my head I would say Machel or something. Machel Montano. Kes. One of my favorites. Bungie Garlin. Nyla Blackman.
Yes. Patrice Roberts. And Mikel Teja.
Who we got to meet.
We got to meet him. That was actually super exciting. He is my favorite. I really like him. And we have, we'll show some photos.
And he's got that song, Hello from the Capitol.
Yeah, which I love that song.
Same here.
I love that song. But were you surprised by how hard these artists work during Carnival?
I was very surprised.
Not just the 2 days, like the whole Carnival season.
I was very surprised. I was surprised that they were still going after Carnival, where I seen some of them go to some of the after parties and stuff. But the other thing I was very surprised about is just how many of the songs are about Carnival.
Yes.
Like, I didn't realize before going there, I would be listening to the songs and not really making the connection. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, like most of the songs are about Carnival. So you have a country that, everything changes for, let's say, a month. You have music genre that's like mostly dedicated to one topic, which is the Carnival.
Yeah.
And the energy behind it is just like so intense. And just to say a couple of specific things about soca, it is an evolution from the calypso roots, more in the 70s, faster tempo and very, very bass forward. Yeah. So you hear a lot of the bass like boom, 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 boom. So it is really designed for movement, not for reflection or contemplation.
No. I would dare somebody to put a soca song on and just stand still.
It actually would feel awkward.
It's near impossible.
Even for the fact that the security people, like I have so many videos of security people like moving. Yeah, like they're not doing like a full dance, but they're moving.
Yeah, you can't help it. So, I mean, soca's been an evolution. The music itself.
100%. And I can't wait to hear so even if we're not going to Carnival next year, I'm going to listen to the songs. I'm going to watch what's going on. And, one thing I would say is that soca is not background music. It's like a fuel, it's like an energy fuel.
Yes.
And we'll talk that a little bit more about when we talk about being on the road. Okay, so we talked a bit about Carnival. You've told us a little bit about Port of Spain and the origins. And again, we're using so many different languages and words here, but the fêtes.
The
Can you talk to
fêtes.
us a little
So
bit about the
fête is
fêtes?
just a party. It's
Mhm.
the word translates into a party. And there are, I don't know how many parties there are, but I think every
Hundreds,
year I
maybe?
would say hundreds. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's a good estimate. But from what I understand is that every year they seem to add more and more parties. But
It must be a good business.
it seems like a good business because also, I mean, their parties are all inclusive.
Mhm.
So, okay, I'll talk about that in a second. But the biggest party or the most prestigious party is the Hyatt Lime.
Mhm.
And I use the word lime. That's a Trini slang. It means to hang out.
Do you know
Lime
where it
means
comes from? Like
no.
lime, like in the fruit lime, or?
Well, it's spelled Lime, but I actually don't know the origin of it. But that's what it means. Is just to hang out. So the you just have a lime. Like
I just had
it's
this
just very funny.
I just had this memory, like, when my mom and like that generation was growing up here,
Yeah.
a lime would have been called a guateque. Here
Oh,
it's,
really?
yeah, like we do not use that word now, but it's like
Yeah.
you just hang out
Yeah.
together and you drink. It's like, again, but it's got a very different connotation to a party. It's more
It's
like a
not.
hangout.
It's like a hangout. It can be spontaneous.
Mhm.
It can just be it's
Do you
casual
say we're
sometimes.
liming?
Yeah, you
Okay.
say yeah, like that's what people do. You just
We're
go and
liming.
like when we're sitting on my sister's porch or something. You're just having some drinks and
Yeah.
the pool and the view and it's a lime. You're just hanging.
Hanging out. Yeah.
Yeah. So Hyatt Lime is, I think, the premier event. The tickets are extremely expensive.
What are we looking at, more or less?
Per ticket, 700 US.
US.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's probably one of the more expensive.
That is, I think, if not the most expensive. I don't think there are other parties that are quite as. There are parties that are expensive, but maybe not as expensive.
Oh yeah, for sure. Based on
So,
some of the ones that we saw, yeah.
yeah, and that is, again, all inclusive. So you have access to depending on the level of ticket. The 700 is the most expensive ticket. But you have a private area, which somehow we didn't get to. I don't
Mm.
know what happened, but we
Didn't
didn't
make it there.
we didn't make it there. But the food is over the top. I mean, you have beautiful food. You have
Is it like exclusive alcohol as well?
exclusive alcohol. It's, I mean, all you can eat, all you can drink, but the Hyatt does an amazing job. And when they do food, it is over the top. It is not just, one little sushi platter. It's sushi as far as the eye can see,
Yeah.
desserts, dessert towers,
Did they
all
have shark and bake or
you know what? I got in the sushi line and then I kind of
got
was
lost
like,
in the sushi line?
yeah, I was like, this is a lot of work. And then I ended up leaving the sushi line.
Oh god.
But it is the place where if you want to be seen, that's where you go. So the
Yeah.
who's who of the whole island is there to, show that, look at, we're here at the premier event. Would I go to it again? If I went back, I would say probably not because I don't think I would need to do it again. But the fact that you do it, you're there and you're going to have the whole experience. I am happy that I experienced it,
Awesome.
you know.
So that was the Hyatt then. And I know we're going to be talking in a little bit more detail in our slice of life about some of the fets.
Okay.
But whoops, almost fell down. Okay, so outside of that one, I think, is there anything else, Nalini, that you want to mention about the actual fets themselves?
We can talk about it in Slice of Life.
Okay, we'll talk about it in Slice of Life then. But I think just kind of one watch point that is worth understanding is you can go and do carnival without going to carnival. A lot of people
Absolutely.
just go for the fets.
Yeah.
And following this episode, we'll do a little post on social media about which one we would repeat and which one maybe we wouldn't repeat.
Right.
And you will hear us talk a little bit about some of the prices, etc. I do want to mention that you can do carnival very expensive. Actually, Trinidad Carnival can be one of the most expensive in the world to do if you
Yes.
go with all the things. But you can also do it very low cost. And actually, for some of the people on the island, they've started a new band for people who who can't afford to be part of some of the more exclusive experiences,
Right.
so that you don't lose the traditions of Carnival,
Yeah.
which I think is absolutely awesome. So we're now going into our slice of
Yeah.
life. Slice of life.
Okay. So, okay, we have a lot of things on the table right now.
Yeah, I feel like we have a little market
Okay.
going on.
A little bit. We have, okay, let's start first of all. Now, okay, this is Cricks, but I mean, this is not necessarily I mean, I think it's terrible. This is all we were showing
Hey,
of the,
like, we don't have time to cook big curries and a lot of
no,
there was we are not saying this is representative of the depth of Trinidadian cuisine.
no, not at all. It's just what we could bring in the suitcase. That's
Bring in
it.
the suitcase, and also funny things that we thought, like, okay, this has been mentioned many times
A
now.
lot of times. So this is their famous Cricks. Okay, it is a cracker, and it is referred to as the vital supply. So Trinidadians swear by it, that if you have, I don't know, an upset stomach, if you're on, you don't feel well or you need something, it's comfort food. I mean, every house has Cricks, and if you don't feel well, they'll tell you have some Cricks. It is a thing.
Do you think it's like kind of how, in some cultures they'll say crackers and what is it, seltzer water
Yeah,
or
or
something?
sometimes like,
You gotta-
for like chicken soup with some salt,
Cricks,
yeah,
yeah.
salt crackers.
Salt crackers.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's what I was
So
thinking.
it is just something that is supposed to, settle your stomach or provide some kind of, I don't know.
Can you hold it up?
Yeah.
Because so we are not sponsored by Cricks, but by the way,
No.
Cricks, if you are watching this, because they have a huge representation on Instagram and a lot of different places. I am super curious because here in Spain, I think the closest thing that we have to Cricks, and I don't think it's a Spanish brand, but it is very consumed here. It's Ritz crackers,
Oh,
which are
really?
saltier. Ritz,
Ritz is a big thing here?
This is a huge thing. Like,
Oh.
every supermarket has a galletitas, like the little
Oh.
salty ones. I used to be hooked on those as a kid.
Oh.
But they are saltier. But is that some way related to Cricks, or it's Cricks just like a Trinidadian thing?
No,
Like,
Cricks
what
is
it?
really, because when my sister gave it to me, because after we came back on for Carnival, we did our makeup and stuff like that, and we're starving. She said, "Okay, we'll have some Cricks." So I was like, "What is this Crick? Why do you keep telling me about the Cricks?" And then she showed it to me, and of course, we started eating. We had some scrambled eggs and Cricks, and she was laughing at us because, you're kind of hooked on it. But it's actually from two Venezuelan brothers who
Okay.
immigrated to Trinidad in the early 1900s. One of the brothers went to the World Trade Fair in Paris and saw this oven that was dry baking these biscuits. And that's how it came about. So brought it back, and it has been manufactured since then
In Trinidad.
in Trinidad.
That's so amazing.
Yeah.
Do
So
you think
it
the
is.
name is because like Cricks because it crunches so much?
I don't know. And they said that it was, they started marketing it in the 20s. I mean,
Holy smokes.
I don't think it's changed much. I think they have like 3 varieties of them, the normal and
Yeah, it's
whole
not
wheat
like Pringles 10 million
and,
flavors.
no, it's pretty standard. And they had originally it used to come in a tin,
yeah.
the Cricks tin, but they discontinued that, I think in, maybe 5 to 10 years ago. So it comes, well, it's probably a lot cheaper too instead
Yeah.
of the tin. But I think the Cricks tin is probably a collector's item now.
Oh, I'm sure. So should we try that?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's really just crackers and cheese, and yeah. Marketed as the vital supply.
Mm,
Don't you think that's funny?
I can't talk right now.
I think it is. Yeah.
I think I need some more. Okay, we'll go there in a second. So
You have tequila.
I do. We are eating these with just Parmesan cheese, but
Yeah.
they do go with everything.
Everything.
All right. So Cricks and cheese.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting one.
Hmm.
I only saw one specific person drink this, which
Yeah.
was your brother-in-law.
Yeah.
But I loved it. So I think I was having a bit of an existential crisis in Trinidad about what I wanted to drink because it was very hot. I didn't feel like drinking like champagne or prosecco or this or that, and I was like, I need something,
Yeah.
that taste of something. And for me, that was not a week to be sober,
Yeah.
because it was like I wanted to kind of dance and enjoy myself and so on. And I tried this drink that he was drinking, and I was like, what is that? Maybe my kind of unique palate or something. But then we found out it's actually a very common drink there.
It's very common. So do you want to? Okay. First of all, there are these salted prunes.
Mm-hmm.
They don't refer to it as salted prunes, though. They just say salt prunes.
Salt prunes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they are, I guess, a cured, preserved prune of some type.
Actually, it's interesting because this is a product of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yep.
And the ingredients are prune, salt, sugar, licorice, sodium benzoate, red and yellow coloring.
Mhm.
I don't even want to look at the amount of calories on this. I don't want to upset myself. I was drinking the drink, but I never actually ate the prune. But I'll maybe potentially do that once it's marinated. So the way that you do this, from what we were told, and it's really simple, is you just kind of, I have a little kind of preserve
Yeah.
thing here. You stick the prunes in. I think that's a lot of prunes, but regardless.
Well, you just basically use the alcohol to, let me smell it.
Smell
to cure the prunes further
They're
than
they're
what.
pretty cured.
I used to eat these as a kid. Like when
Really?
somebody would go to Trinidad and come back, they would always bring some back, and I would eat. You just eat them like that.
Interesting. So, and then you put the tequila in. For today, we have this Olmeca tequila,
Okay.
hecho en Mexico. And you just pour it over the salted prunes.
And it just, it just basically marinates in it
And you can marinate it from an hour,
to a year.
days.
Yeah.
And obviously, the more that you leave it in there, the more the taste of the prunes that it's going to take on. Wow, I just poured that whole bottle of tequila.
Yeah.
Whoa. Woo. It's early for that smell. So we're not going to be trying this
No.
today because it is supposed to marinate, but we will be trying it at some point. I'm going to leave it in the refrigerator. Here,
So-
smell it.
Yeah. When you make it like this, like when you do it, what do you put in the tequila? Is it just tequila, or is it tequila and water, or
Just tequila.
it's just tequila?
And a lot of ice.
Oh. Oh,
Yeah.
strong.
So what? Yes. So what was happening? Wait, I'm gonna give this a good shake. There you go. Leave it there. So what was happening, during our time there is I would just get like this glass here,
Yeah.
which is the hearts glass. We'll talk more about that in the next episode, with some ice and a little bit of this. And obviously, because it is quite strong and it's very flavorful,
Right.
you just drink like a little bit at a time.
Right.
It's not a shot situation. It's
No.
more like when you drink a whiskey, something you
It's
just drink.
something you're sipping.
Yeah.
I'm not a tequila person, and I did try it several times.
I wasn't a tequila person until
But
this
you-
came along.
But
I
you
liked
like
it.
it. You like it because it's savory.
It's very savory.
It's a
And I do not like sweet cocktails, so I think that's maybe what this was. And it's not a cocktail, obviously, but it's interesting. So I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to trying it here outside of the environment there to see if I still like it. Because
I think you
sometimes when
will.
you like drink something and you're in the place,
I did have. I don't know who mixed it. I did have a sip of it, and it was one of the better versions because I think it was weaker.
oh yeah,
It was a little bit lighter.
probably
and-
just a bunch of ice. Because
Yeah.
based on my understanding, as I asked several people, it is literally just like tequila.
Oh, okay.
That there was nothing else in it.
Oh,
Maybe something sweet. Because I remember
don't-
trying one that was like, maybe it was very good quality tequila. Because I know at one
Possibly.
point it was like Don Julio or whatever. So,
yeah.
okay. So we've had a little bit on the salt and prunes with tequila, the cricks and cheese. Let's move on back to some of the fets.
Mhm.
We've talked about the Hyatt Lime that Nalini attended. So we want to go back to some of the other fets that we went to. And that included the Bayview party.
Mhm.
and it included Soca Street. Why don't you talk to us about Bayview and just running into people there, etc.?
Okay, so a lot of these parties, there's a lot of funny videos prior to Carnival where they just show people trying to give their money away to the party promoters to buy the tickets, and they're just laughed out of the office because it's like a thing. It's a competitive thing to get the tickets. So I think what organizers do, there's a committee, but okay, I'm sort of guessing at this, but all the tickets are not just released. I
No,
think committee members have X number of tickets that they can sell, but it's a way of kind of vetting who comes into the party. So it's not just
anyone.
anyone. So
And for Bayview, they actually advertise it as a party where you know everyone.
you kind of do though. So I think it's just, it's who you know, which I mean, again, as an outsider, I can't really comment on it, but I know people who live there, they're finding it difficult that if you don't know somebody or you can't afford the ticket, you can't participate in some of these parties.
And in some cases, both. Like,
Both.
even if you can afford it, but
You
you
need to
can't get the
know
ticket.
somebody.
Yeah.
And they also sell male and female tickets.
Which is
For
very interesting.
yeah, for some of these parties, it's male and female tickets. So they try to keep it balanced. So it's not just, all men,
basically.
all men, and that there's very few women or vice versa. So because I've heard some of the guys say they've gone to parties there and there are no women.
Yeah.
So I think that's been, a thing.
Which again, even if you're not going to specifically flirt or meet people or whatever, it's still kind of weird vibe if you show up somewhere and there isn't a little bit of a quality of representation
No, and
for
it's
dancing, for the
yeah, and just
atmosphere.
like
Yeah.
everything, a little bit more balance. So and then a lot of these parties too are what they refer to as cooler parties.
Yes, that was very unique. I've never seen that.
So a cooler party is where you fill your own cooler, or you can if you want. You don't have to because they actually do have bars.
They do have bars.
They have bars.
And they have bars where you can pay, but it's very little.
Yeah.
Because again, it's somehow like not all inclusive, but there's some of it included. But they also had a lot of free drinks they were giving out. Like Carib, the Trini, well, it's not Trini, I guess Caribbean beer.
Yeah.
Was represented, and they were giving out beer for free. There was like multiple stands that were giving out free drinks.
Yeah. So but for some people, they don't want to be walking from their spot.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll have a stage, you're going to have either a DJ or live performances. Some of these soca artists will come through.
Yeah.
They never really say who.
Yeah.
And then you set up in a spot with your cooler. So you got to drag the cooler in, set up in your spot, and then that's your kind of area, where the cooler is your base.
What time did the Hyatt Lime start at?
It actually started early. It started at 4.
So that's what I was going to mention. So let's say, for example, if you're coming from a kind of, when we always talk about Spain and everything starts late.
You go
and
to
you're going
midnight.
Yeah, here it's like if you're going out in the summer, you're going out late and that kind of thing. This whole setup in Trinidad for Carnival, most of the parties are day parties. Some of them, we'll talk more about a couple of the others now, are not day parties, but they're almost like at the crack of dawn parties.
Yeah.
And some of them obviously go well into the night, but you do not have to be a night party person to enjoy these fetes because they are happening during the day.
So Bayview was early as well. I think maybe what time would you get there? Like 5?
4, 5?
Yeah, sometime around then. The sun was setting. It was near the water. You have music, you're dancing, you have drinks, and then the all-inclusive side of it is food.
Yeah.
So your ticket price, those tickets were not incredibly expensive. They were
like 100 and something.
Yeah, they were a lot more affordable, and it does include food. So you're able to go and basically there's so many different types of food stalls that you can participate in with every kind
My
of food.
husband had like samosas and he loved them. So.
Yeah, there's every kind of food, which to us it was surprising because you go and you stand in line and then you go to put your money and they're like, no, it's included.
Which
in
I
your
thought was
ticket
interesting.
price.
That happened to us multiple times at several of the events.
But the food is substantial. It's not like a little bit. It's a meal. Like you can have roti, you can have I don't know, pasta,
There's
ribs,
tacos
French fries,
there was all
tacos,
kinds of stuff.
burger, like you name it, you can pretty much partake in it. So I think that was the interesting side of it as well, that your ticket does include the food. But you're also allowed, if you want to bring your cooler in, which everybody does.
Yes.
So you bring your cooler, you fill it with your alcohol, excuse me, and then that's your dancing area.
You may not make it out with your cooler, but
No, I think our cooler was left there.
So last one that we'll mention on this episode
Mhm.
before we wrap up, and it is a concept that I would love for promoters in Spain to pick up on,
Yeah.
is Soca Street. So Soca Street, I have never in my life done this before. We woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
to go to a party.
Yes.
I
And
mean, let that sit for a moment. 3 o'clock in the morning, we woke up to go to a party that started at 4 a.m.
it started 4 a.m. Chaos in the entrance.
Yes. And it is, for those of you who have been to Songkran in Thailand, I guess that's the closest thing I can picture to it. Incredible energy. For me, I think it was probably one of my
Excuse me.
favorite kind of energy-wise. It was my favorite party out of the whole time. I don't know if you can still see it in some of the videos or the pictures that we may be showing, but I did end up with pink hair because of
Right.
it.
So Soca Street, or these paint and water parties, it is supposed to be a mimic Juve,
Yes.
which takes place on the Monday of a carnival.
Carnival.
So Monday morning in the prior to dawn breaking, people go out and they throw mud and water and paint and all kinds of stuff. And it's supposed to be this kind of free street cathartic release. And you do it in the pre-dawn hours, and then you go home. Typically, you go home, you wash all of it off, and then you get dressed up in your pretty Monday wear costume. So that's the traditional side of it, which people still partake in. But
see a
now,
lot of people from
promoters have, they've capitalized on it. They realize, look at, we can do it in a controlled environment, sell tickets, and make money from it. So we basically did our version of
your
Juve, which it's paint, it's water, it's powder, and
Pigment.
pigment. People are throwing it on you. Your hair's still slightly pink from it.
Slightly. It was way more pink, but it was cathartic. It was so much fun. It's such a interesting experience when you're dancing and the soca music's playing in the background and the sun's coming up.
The sun's coming up. And after that party, we went to another party.
Yes.
I think it's called Palm.
So that
It was
was
called Palm.
it's
kind of like a little neighborhood. So it was a neighborhood
bloco
Yeah.
party.
Yeah, that's what they call it, a block party. So
Yeah.
it's a private neighborhood that has a gated entrance, but I think the residents all come together and do a street party.
Yeah. That was my husband's favorite party.
Oh, that one, really?
Yeah, he loved that.
Oh.
Because he thought that was like something out of like a American movie where you like all the neighbors were dressed up so nice, and here we show up like full of paint and
and then we were told that
Wet.
don't worry, everybody, a lot of people are from here are going straight to that party.
not happening. We were the only ones
No.
there that were full of paint, and everybody was dressed like up to the nines.
Everyone was just like really nice, looked
Yeah.
really pretty, and we looked. I mean, you'll see some photos. We looked not like that.
Yeah, but it was amazing. So Soca Street, I mean, that's something definitely that I would do again. So that brings us to the end of our slice of life
Yeah.
and the end of our first episode covering Port of Spain and Carnival. In the next episode, we're going to talk about playing mass, and we're going to talk about crossing the stage and road march and a lot of different things. So join us on that journey for this 2-part series on the wonderful experience in Port of Spain and Trinidad. So for our last part today, we're doing the sentence of the day.
Okay.
So I think this is going to be easy, okay?
Okay.
But it's just so applicable. So, la vida es un carnaval.
Carnival is life.
So
Life is carnival.
Life is a carnival.
Yeah. Okay.
And it comes from that song from Celia Cruz.
Oh,
That goes
okay.
like, ay, no hay que llorar, que
Oh,
la vida
okay.
es un
Yeah.
carnaval. So don't cry, because life is a carnival.
Oh, nice.
So
I like
you can
that.
make your interpretation out of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so la vida es un carnaval.
All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And, our next episode, we'll be giving you our point of view.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye for
Bye for
now.
now.